on a Monday. I'm gonna read where I just read really fast so that this can get uploaded to YouTube one day. How they found the magic wood after a brief intermission of my internet crashing. There were once 3 children called Joe, Bessie, and Fanny. All their lives they had lived in a town, but now their father had a job in the country, so they were all to move as soon as ever they could. "What fun to be in the country," said Joe. "I shall learn about animals and birds." "And I shall pick as many flowers as I want to," said Bessie. "And I shall have a garden of my own," said Fanny. When the day came for the move, all the children were excited. A small van came to their door, and 2 men helped their father and mother to pile everything into it. When it was full, the van drove away, and the children put on their coats and hats to go with their father and mother to catch a train at the station. Also, damn, imagine fitting all of your possessions into a van. Their father really does need a new job. "Now we're off," cried Joe. The country," sang Bessie. "We might see fairies there," said Fanny. The train whistled and chuffed out of the station. The children pressed their noses to the window and watched the dirty houses and the tall chimneys race by. How they hated the town. How lovely it would be to be in the clean country, with flowers growing everywhere and birds singing in the hedges. "We might have adventures in the country," said Joe. "There will be streams and hillsides, big fields and dark woods. Ooh, it will be lovely." "You won't have any more adventures in the country than you will have in the town," said their father. "I dare to say you'll find it very dull." "I dare say you will find it all very dull." But that's where he was quite wrong. My goodness, the things that happened to those 3 children. They arrived at last at the tiny station where they were to get out. A sleepy-looking porter put their 2 bags on a barrow and said he would bring them along later. Off they all went down the winding country lane, chattering loudly. "I wonder what the cottage will be like," said Bessie. "And I wonder if we've got a garden," said Fanny. But long before they reached their new home, they were tired out and could not bother to say a word more to each other. Their cottage was 5 miles from the station, and as the children's father could not afford to do anything but walk there, it seemed a very long way indeed. There was no bus to take them, so the tired children dragged their feet along, wishing for a cup of milk and a warm bed. At last they got there, and dear me, it was worth all the walk, for the cottage was sweet. Roses hung from the walls, red and white and pink, and honeysuckle was all round the front door. It was lovely. And now I will try to show the picture without breaking the book in half. There's Joe, Bessie, and Fanny. That's Fanny, and that's Joe, and that's Joe, and that's Bessie. I think I'm gonna get that tattooed on me. That would make a sick tattoo. I got it like right here. Yeah, W illustrations. The van was at the door, and the two men were moving all the furniture into the little house. Father helped, whilst Mother went to light the kitchen fire to make them all a hot drink. They were so tired that they could do nothing but drink hot milk, eat a few biscuits, and tumble into their roughly made beds. Joe looked out of the window, but he was too sleepy to see properly. In 1 minute, the two girls in their small room were asleep, and Joe, too, in his even tinier room. What fun it was to wake up in the morning and see the sun shining in at the strange windows. I'm gonna cry. This is actually so cute. Oh my god. I literally lived in the country and I would fantasize about like moving to the country. Moving to the cottage, of course. What fun it was to wake up in the morning and see the sun shining in at strange windows. It didn't take Joe, Bessie, and Fanny very long to dress. They were out in the little garden running through the grass that had grown so long and smelled the roses that had grew all around. Mother cooked eggs for them. Gonna eat me a lot of peaches, moving to the country. Mother cooked eggs for them, and they ate their breakfast hungrily. "It's lovely to be in the country," said Joe, looking out of the window to the faraway hills. "We can grow vegetables in the garden," said Bessie. "There will be glorious walks all around," said Fanny. That day, everyone helped to get the little house straight and tidy. Father was going to work the next day. Mother hoped there would be someone to give her washing to do. Then she would make enough money to buy a few hens. That would be lovely. "I shall collect the eggs each morning and evening," said Fanny happily. "Let's go out and see what the country roundabout is like," said Joe. "Can you spare us for an hour, Mother?" "Yes, run along," said Mother. So off the three children went. Out of the tiny white front gate and into the lane. They explored all round about. They ran across a field where pink clover was full of bees. They paddled in a small brown stream that chattered away to itself under the willow trees in the sunshine. And then suddenly they came to the wood. It was not far from their cottage, at the back. It looked quite an ordinary wood, except that the trees were a darker green than usual. A narrow ditch separated the wood from the overgrown lane. "A wood," said Bessie in delight. "We shall be able to have picnics here." "It's a rather mysterious sort of wood," said Joe thoughtfully. "Don't you think so, Bessie?" "Well, the trees are rather thick, but they seem about the same as any other," said Bessie. "They don't quite," said Fanny. "The noise that the leaves make is different. Listen." They listened, and Fanny was right. The leaves of the trees in the wood did not rustle in quite the same way as other trees nearby did. "It's almost as if they were really talking to one another," said Bessie. "Whispering secrets. Real secrets that we just can't understand." "It's a magic wood," said Fanny suddenly. Nobody said anything. It's like hearing a korok nearby. Exactly. It's a magic wood, said Fanny suddenly. Nobody said anything. They stood and listened. Whoosh, 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 said the trees in the wood, and bent towards one another in a friendly way. There might be fairy folk in there, said Bessie. Shall we jump over the ditch and go in? No, said Joe. We might get lost. Let's find our way around before we go into the big woods like this. Or before we go into big woods like this. Joe, Bessie, Fanny, suddenly came their mother's voice from the cottage not far off. Tea time, tea time. The children felt hungry all at once. They forgot the queer wood and ran back to their new home. Mother had new bread with strawberry jam for them, and I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the Pepe. Oh my god. Tea time. Me running to tea time. Oh, fuck, wait, that's the crying one. This people fat run. Let me get that. Okay. Me running to tea time. Tea is also good when you're crying. You just gotta add a little more sugar than usual. Mother had new bread with strawberry jam for them, and they ate a whole loaf between them. Father came in as they were finishing. He had been shopping for Mother in the village 3 miles away, and he was hungry and tired. We've been exploring everywhere, Father, said Bessie, pouring him a big cup of tea. We found a lovely wood, said Fanny. It's a queer sort of wood, said Joe. The trees really seem to be talking to one another, Father. Ooh. That must be the wood I've heard about this afternoon, said Father. It has a strange name, children. What is it called? Asked Joe. It's called the Enchanted Wood, said their father. People don't go there if they can help it. It's funny to hear things like this nowadays, and I don't expect there really is anything very queer about the wood. But just be careful not to go too far into it, in case you get lost. The children looked in excitement at one another. The Enchanted Wood? What a lovely name. And each child secretly thought the same thought. I shall go and explore the Enchanted Wood as soon as ever I can. Don't go too far, children. You might get lost. I'm absolutely going to explore that as soon as possible. This is what life was like before the internet. It was truly wonderful. Their father sent them to work in the overgrown garden after tea. Joe had to pull up tough thistles, and the 2 girls had to weed the untidy vegetable bed. They spoke to one another in joyful voices. The Enchanted Wood? We knew there was something queer about it. I guess there were fairies there, said Fanny. We'll do some more exploring as soon as we can, cried Bessie. We'll find out what those whispering trees are saying. We'll know all the secrets of the wood before many weeks are past. And that night, at bedtime, all three stood at the window, looking out on the dark. And that night at bedtime, all three stood at the window, looking out on the dark, whispering wood behind the cottage. What would they find in the enchanted wood? Chapter 2. First visit to the wood. The three children had no chance to visit the enchanted wood until the next week. They didn't have a chance to visit the enchanted wood until the next week because they had to help their mother and father all they could. There was the garden to get tidy, curtains to sew for the house, and a great deal of cleaning to be done. Sometimes Joe was free and could have gone by himself. Sometimes the girls were sent out for a walk, but Joe was busy. None of them wanted to go without the others, so they had to wait. And then at last their chance came. You can take your tea out today, said Mother. You've worked well, all of you, and you deserve a picnic. I'll cut you some sandwiches and you can take a bottle of milk. We'll go to the wood, whispered Bessie to the others, and with excited faces and beating hearts, they helped their mother to pack their tea into a big basket. They set off. There was a small gate at the bottom of their back garden that led into the overgrown lane running by the wood. They unlatched the gate and stood in the lane. They could see the trees in the wood and hear them talking in their strange tree talk. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. I feel as if there are adventures about, said Joe. Come on, over the ditch we go and into the enchanted wood. One by one, the children jumped over the narrow ditch. They stood beneath the trees and peered about. Small freckles of sunshine lay here and there on the ground, but not very many, for the trees were so thick. It was dim and green there, and a small bird nearby sang a queer little song over and over. It really is magic, said Fanny suddenly. I can feel magic about somewhere. Can't you, Bessie? Can't you, Joe? Yes, said the others, and their eyes shone with excitement. Come on. They went down a little green path that looked as if it had been made for rabbits. It was so small and narrow. Don't let's go too far, said Joe. Don't let's. It actually makes sense because let's is a contraction of let us. Don't let us go too far. Don't let's go too far, though, said Joe. We had better wait till we know the paths a bit better before we go deep into the wood. Let's look about for a good place to sit down and have our sandwiches, girls. I can see some wild strawberries, cried Bessie, and she knelt down and pressed back some pretty leaves, showing others the deep red strawberries below. My mom read this to me as a baby. My heart. She pressed back some pretty leaves, showing others the deep red strawberries below. Let's pick some and have them for tea too, said Fanny. So they picked hard, and soon had enough to make a fine meal. Let's sit down under that old oak tree over there, said Joe. It's all soft moss beneath. It'll be like sitting down on a green velvet cushion. So they sat down and undid their sandwiches. Soon they were munching away happily, listening to the dark green leaves overhead, saying whoosh, whoosh, whoosh all the time. And there's another picture. Lovely, innit? Fanny said Britishly. And it was whilst they were in the middle of their tea that they saw a very peculiar thing. Fanny noticed it first. Not far off was a clear piece of soft grass. As Fanny looked at it, she noticed bumps appearing. She stared in surprise. The bumps grew. The earth rose and broke in about 6 places. Look, said Fanny in a low voice, pointing to the piece of grass. What's happening over there? All 3 watched in silence, and then they saw what it was. 6 big toadstools were growing quickly up from the ground, pushing their way through and rising up steadily. I've never seen that happen before, said Joe in astonishment. Shh, said Bessie. Don't make a noise. I can hear footsteps. The others listened. Sure enough, they heard the sound of pattering feet and little high voices. Let's get quickly behind a bush, said Bessie suddenly. Whoever it is that is coming will be frightened if they see us. There's magic happening here, and I want to see it. Bessie is so real. Joe and Bessie are like goated characters, by the way. Fanny's great, but she's like the little sister, you know? So this is definitely Joe and Bessie. Also, Bessie is a cow's name. Let's hide behind a bush, said Bessie suddenly. Whoever that is that's coming will be frightened if they see us. There's magic happening here, and we want to see it. They scrambled up and crept quietly behind a thick bush, taking their basket with them. They hid just in time. Yeah, in the gritty horror remake, Fanny doesn't make it. She's like that kid at the end of The Quiet Place. They hid just in time, for even as Bessie settled down and parted the leaves of the bush to peep through, there came a troop of small men with long beards, almost touching the ground. Brownies, whispered Joe. They called gnomes brownies? Okay, never mind. Brownies, whispered Joe. The brownies went to the toadstools and sat down on them. They were holding a meeting. One of them had a bag with him, which he put down behind his toadstool. I just inhaled excitedly and inhaled some spit. Sorry. meet the Frownies. And anyways, I inhaled excitedly because I imagined having like a toadstool seat. That would be cool. They were holding a meeting. One of them had a bag with him, which he put down behind his toadstool. The children could not hear what was being said, but they heard the sound of the chattering voices and caught one or two words. Suddenly, Joe nudged Bessie and Fanny. He had seen something else. The girls saw it too. An ugly gnome-like fellow. Oh, I guess gnomes are different from brownies. Did he move? I just realized Mandley is facing away from us. Can you guys see that? I feel like I just looked at him, but I probably imagined it. He's literally turned away. He's like, that's a slur. So 6 toadstools pop up out of the ground, shaking the earth. And then a bunch of little gnome people, although they're not called gnomes, run up and they have a meeting on the toadstools. Then suddenly Joe nudged Bessie and Fanny. He had seen something else. The girls saw it too. An ugly gnome-like fellow was creeping up silently behind the meeting on the toadstools. None of the brownies saw him or heard him. "He's after that bag," whispered Joe. And so he was. He reached out a long arm. His bony fingers closed on the bag. He began to draw it away under the bush. Joe jumped up. He was not going to watch people being robbed without saying something. He shouted loudly, "Stop, thief!" Actual Oblivion dialogue. Okay. "Stop, thief!" "Hi, look at that gnome behind you!" In a fright, the brownies all leapt up. The gnome jumped to his feet and sped off with the bag. The brownies stared after him in dismay. The brownies stared after him in dismay, not one of them following him. The robber ran towards the children's bush. He didn't know they were there. As quick as lightning, Joe put out his foot and tripped up the running gnome. Down he went, crash. The bag flew from his hand, and Bessie picked it up and threw it to the astonished brownies, who were still standing by the toadstools. Joe tried to grab the gnome, but he was up and off like a bird. The children tore after him. In between the trees they went, dodging here and there, and at last they saw the gnome leap up to the low branches of a great tree and pull himself into the leaves. The children sank at the bottom, out of breath. "We've got him now," said Joe. He can't get down without being caught. Here are the brownies coming, said Bessie, wiping her hot forehead. The little bearded men ran up and bowed. You are very good to us, said the biggest one. Thank you for saving our bag. We have valuable papers in there. We've got the gnome for you, too, said Joe as he pointed up into the tree. He went up there. If you surround the tree and wait, you'll be able to catch him as he comes down. But the brownies would not come too near the tree. They looked half frightened of it. He will not come down until he wants to, said the biggest brownie. That is the oldest, most magic tree in the world. It is the faraway tree. The faraway tree, said Bessie in wonder. What a queer name. Why do you call it that? It's a very strange tree, said another brownie. Its top reaches the faraway places in a way that we don't understand. Sometimes its top branches might be in Witchland, sometimes in lovely countries, sometimes in peculiar places no one has ever heard of. We never climb it, because we never know what might be at the top. How very strange, said the children. The gnome has gotten into whatever place there is at the top of the tree today, said the biggest brownie. He might live there for months and never come down again. It's no good waiting for him. And it's certainly no good going after him. His name is Creepy, because he is forever creeping about quietly. I love the gnome named Creepy. The children looked up into the broad, leafy boughs of the tree. They felt tremendously excited. The faraway tree in the enchanted wood. Oh, what magic there seemed to be in the very names. If only we could climb up, said Joe longingly. You must never do that, said the brownies. At once. It's dangerous. We must go now, but we do thank you for your help. And if you ever want us to help you, just come to the enchanted wood and whistle 7 times under the oak tree, not far from our toadstools. Thank you, said the children, and stared after the 6 small brownies as they ran off between the trees. Joe thought it was time to go home, so they followed the little men down the narrow green path until they came to the part of the wood that they knew. They picked up their basket and went home, all of them thinking the same thought. We must go up the faraway tree and see what is at the top. All right, I'll read the next chapter, Up the Faraway Tree, but I have to pee, so I'll be right back. And we'll stop after chapter 3. Thank you for listening.